We have a very robust email and text message digital campaign, and our customers are highly engaged, and we do decently well on social.
Hey everyone, this is Nazar Akil from Max Pro.
Hi, I'm Linda.
And I'm Paul.
And we're 11 Pebbles.
Hi, this is Lopa Vandermersch from Rasa.
Oh, you're listening.
And you are listening to the E-Comm Show.
Welcome to the E-Comm Show, presented by BlueTuskr, the #1 place to hear the inside scoop from other e-commerce experts, where they share their secrets on how they scaled their business and are now living the dream. Now, here is your host, Andrew Maff.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the E-Comm Show. I'm your host, Andrew Maff, and today I am here with the amazing Buck Dutton, who is the VP of Marketing for Native Roots Cannabis Company in Colorado. Buck, how you doing? Ready for a good show?
I'm ready, Andrew. Thank you.
Super excited to have you on today. I love talking about this industry because it changes like every couple hours, so it's always very interesting to hear what's going on at this moment. But I would love to give you the opportunity to let everyone know a little bit more about yourself, your background. Obviously, we'll get into Native as well, and then we'll take it from there.
Sure, Andrew. I am originally from Atlanta, Georgia. You might hear the accent come out every once in a while. Spent about 10 years in Miami working with The Art of Shaving, which is a P&G brand. Was there for around 15 years, 10 years based out of Miami. And then up and relocated about 2 years ago to Denver, Colorado to head up the marketing team here at Native Roots, which is the largest privately held cannabis company in the great state of Colorado.
Beautiful. So Native Roots, it's a very interesting model from what I've been able to dig into. Can you tell us a little bit more about how it works? I know there's obviously retail locations, which is required pretty much, but they're all different. Are they all run by their own people, or is it a franchisee? Because I know they all have different names. Like, what is that? What's that business model like?
So Native Roots, we are vertically integrated. And if you're not familiar with that term, it means that we provide every touch point from seed to sale. So we have a 200,000 square foot grow facility here in Denver, where we pump out a ton of great cannabis for the state. We have our own retail locations. We make our own marijuana infused products in our MIP. And we have everything down to the retail store. So bud tenders reporting directly into our corporate office. It gives us a really nice ecosystem that we own from start to finish. We have about 20 locations across the state, soon to be 21. Most of those are owned by our corporate office. We have 2 stores that are partners. So somebody else holds the license and we run and manage and own a portion of those. They all have different names because they all came online at different times. So for instance, the Dandelion location, which is in Boulder, Colorado, it was one of our first locations and we kept the name the Dandelion, even though it is a Native Roots. All the products inside are Native Roots, but the name on the outside, when you see it, is the Dandelion.
Interesting. So from a marketing perspective, I imagine that's got to be relatively challenging considering you've got a ton of different locations with different names that probably have some kind of different branding aspects to them as well, correct?
Luckily, all of the locations have Native Roots somewhere in the name. So we get by on that. It's not like we're trying to market Old Navy, Banana Republic, and The Gap all at the same time. We get to market Native Roots and makes it a little bit easier for us. I can't imagine having to do 5 to 15 different marketing plans.
Yeah, me either, so I don't blame you. Awesome. Okay, so the big thing with the cannabis side, especially from a marketing perspective, wildly challenging. There's so many things you can't do. There's regulations in 15 different places that you got to change every couple of minutes. So it's hard to follow that kind of stuff. What are you doing? Like what's a majority of your marketing approach right now? And also how do you kind of navigate the constant changes in the industry?
Yeah, so I'll address the constant changes first because that's actually the easiest one. And it's because we have an amazing legal and compliance team here at Native Roots. So we have a group of people that their full-time job is to make sure that we're compliant and following all of the compliance regulations, not only by the state, but various platforms. and as well as federal regulations as well. So even though we are not federally legal, we do have some things that we can and cannot do from the federal government. And then the state likes to step in and says what we can and cannot do. And then we have some specific things that we can and cannot do by platform. And our compliance team is amazing at staying on top of that. So my hat is off to them. Kudos. Thank you to Native Roots compliance and legal team. Without you, my job would be 10 times more complicated. And now some of the regulations, that's what you were asking about, correct?
Yep, the regulations and then what you're doing to market.
I completely forgot the first part of the question. Yeah, there are a lot of things that are constantly changing. And Native Roots used to operate some locations in Canada as well. We have divested that arm of the business. But in Canada, it was even funnier because we couldn't show anybody having a good time. Like in the United States, we can show someone holding a joint. We can't show them smoking the joint. But in Canada, we couldn't show them having a good time. So everyone in Canada was supposed to be very sad as they consumed cannabis. And it's just, the rules and the regulations in this industry are just wild.
Yeah. So now that you're solely focused in Colorado as of right now, correct? Yeah. So obviously the rules there were the first one. They were the first one to pretty much put it in place. So that makes life a little bit easier. What has been the marketing approach from both a brick and mortar perspective as well as an online perspective?
So online is a little interesting. So from an e-commerce standpoint, we have a very, I think we have a great website, and it's about to be even better. We're launching a new website at the end of this month that's going to make it a lot easier for customers to educate themselves and find the products that's going to be best suited for them. You can purchase, and I say purchase in quotes because you can purchase and close out your cart and act as if you have purchased the product, but we cannot accept payment online at the moment. So it basically operates as a holding platform where you have to come into the store for pickup. And we do have about a 92% pickup rate. But in my previous life, if you have an online sale, that's an online sale. Like you put in your credit card number, it ships to your house and you're done. But in this world, it's not the same. So you place your order, it's held, you have to come in store to pick it up. And at the end of the day, we wipe out all the orders that haven't been collected. But even with that kind of system, we still have a 92% conversion, which is pretty good, I would say, in this industry. Go ahead. No. I was just going to say from a brick and mortar, it's interesting because we have a lot of regulations around what we can and cannot say in the digital space. Digital advertising, programmatic ads are extremely difficult to do. Not impossible, but they are difficult to do. And then the tracking back, because we're not accepting payment online, it's always a little bit squishy, attributing where a sale came from in the digital space.
Yeah. So from the online side, so you mentioned you're using programmatic. So is that solely focused on display that you can do on certain sites, or is this more like the content marketing kind of approach where you're creating articles and you're working with people like Taboola and Outbrain that are pushing that kind of stuff?
It's a little bit of both. In the cannabis space, when we do content creation or content pushing, it's usually with cannabis vendors. So there's a great site out there called Herb, which is primarily appeals to millennial stoners. And I'm sure that they would not appreciate me classifying it that way, but that's in a two-word summary. That's basically what it is. And they've been great at the content creation and digital aspects that way. As far as programmatic goes, we've tried a couple different things. No, nothing has been the silver bullet, if you will. But we continue to test and try until we find what's going to crack the nut.
So from an advertising perspective, it's mostly just partnering with websites that kind of host their own ads.
That is yes. We have gone the programmatic where we actually employ a company, and that's the piece where it gets really hard to start attributing it back to revenue without having the online sales piece. But for the most part, it's working individually with some sites, and then getting creative and thinking outside the box. Like how are we going to promote various stores without going the traditional programmatic ad spend, pop up ads, etc.
Yeah, so that was gonna be my next question, right? Because I know typically in this kind of space or in really any restricted space, like advertising's just not really a thing. Like you mentioned, like there's some ways around it, but it's nowhere near what everyone else gets the benefit from, at least from a digital
Right.
perspective. So, what are you doing to get people to be able to learn about the product or products, I should say, and then all the different locations? Like, what's that marketing strategy look like?
Sure. It's several pieces in the marketing strategy. One thing I will say is when cannabis adult use was passed, it was portrayed that it was going to be regulated just like alcohol. And I will
Hmm.
say, working in this industry, we are not regulated like, excuse me, we are not regulated like alcohol in the least. For example, one of the things that we are really good at here at Native Roots is sponsoring local community events. We have uh, a lot of success and a lot of return on investment with sponsoring these localized events. Last summer, we sponsored Denver Pride, and at the cities under the city regulations, we had to have a blacked out tent. We had to check IDs before people came into the tent, and all we were doing was simply educating them on cannabis. We were not giving out any samples, nothing to that sort. There was nothing for sale, and it looked like we were just completely blacked out. It was like a mystery vendor. Whereas Absolute, and kudos to Absolute, this is not a dig at Absolute at all, but Absolute was a sponsor in the park. They were passing out swag. They had tents. They had banners everywhere. And then Coors was the sponsor of the Pride Parade, which was actually televised. And they were front and center, Coors coming down the street, Happy Pride, whereas our education tent was completely blacked out. So we would love to be regulated like alcohol, but that is not the case
Yeah.
at the moment.
Jeez. That's got to be wildly challenging. It's so the events that you've been doing, the different pop-up events or the different like community events that you're sponsoring, like is that the most effective form of marketing you've had so far, or is there
It's
other
one
aspects
of.
that you've started to see?
Yeah, it's one of. And we do offer some print advertising as well. We have some local publications here in Colorado that have been very receptive to print advertising for cannabis. And then we do offer some digital space. We are taking out some ads digitally. We have a very robust email and text message digital campaign,
That's nice. Yes.
and our customers are highly engaged. And we do decently well on social. There are a couple of social platforms that we do really well in. We are very heavily liked on Instagram, and we've taken a lot of steps recently of making sure that Instagram likes us to the point that they're even offering us to boost our post. But we know in the Instagram world we can't boost our post. But we've
Yeah.
gotten ourselves into a place where Instagram likes us enough to be calling on us to boost our ads.
So they're calling you to boost your stuff, even
Yeah,
though you
I,
can't.
I have to imagine it's not a person. It's got to be an algorithm that doesn't realize
Yeah,
that we're a cannabis company at the moment.
that's pretty good. So from that definitely makes sense that social would be one of the top ones because it's really the best way from an online perspective for you to be able to bring in new people. Have you done anything from like an influencer perspective of like maybe just localized influencers within Colorado?
We have. We launched a new apparel line back in February. It's been extremely successful, and we've built it kind of like a lifestyle brand. And we worked with about 25 influencers for that launch, of them posting about the apparel. So it wasn't necessarily about the cannabis, it was about the apparel that is carried at this cannabis brand. And that has been hugely successful.
Interesting. That's okay. So you've started to develop almost like a lifestyle brand as a marketing approach to improve on the existing product side of things.
Correct. And that's how we actually launched our TikTok
Interesting.
channel.
Okay. How long have you been trying TikTok?
We've just been on TikTok, I think, since the end of February, beginning of March. It hasn't
How's
been
that going?
wildly successful, but we haven't been shut down and we haven't been flagged. So that's a win in our book.
That's good.
Yeah.
It's a good start. I believe that Twitter is supposed to be releasing the ability to start running ads through, at least for the cannabis industry. Is that something you started to
Yeah,
look into?
they actually have released that.
Oh, did they do it already?
Yes, they have, and there have been a
Nice.
handful of cannabis companies that have dipped their toe into that pool.
Hmm.
I don't think anybody has knocked it out of the park. In fact, I haven't heard about it in a little while, which makes me think that not very many are doing it. We did some research. We did some diving in. We did have to clean up our Twitter account a little bit before we could be or pass the blue check test, if you will. We have the ability to advertise on Twitter today. We have not, simply because we haven't seen a huge return from other people doing it.
Yeah, that's what I've heard too. Interesting. Okay, so one of the questions I had, because I realized you were in more of a traditional kind of e-commerce,
Yep.
consumer facing, regular, I guess we'll call it regular type of business prior to this, and then you came into the cannabis industry. How was that transition? How did you what was your way of figuring out in the beginning, like navigating all of the different rules and regulations, and then how to start
Mhm.
marketing a brand like this?
I will tell you right off the bat that it was an eye opener on my first day. I was with the Art of Shaving brand, which was owned by P&G, and it was a very corporate
Hmm.
type atmosphere. And my first meeting that I was in on my very first day at Native Roots, people were actively talking about how they got high the night before and what products they had been testing and trying. And I just sat there completely like, I am not in Kansas anymore. Like, this is not P&G world. Like what the F is going on? So that was a big eye opener on day one. As far as the regulations go, is all throughout the interview process, I'd been doing my research. I knew that I was stepping into a non-traditional world from what I was used to, and I was perfectly okay with that. I was ready for the challenge. I don't think I realized at the time just how deep the regulations ran. Like
Hmm.
the can't show anybody having fun in Canada thing. That blew my mind. It was not something that we
That's
talked
pretty
about in the
crazy.
interviews. So it was sitting down with those compliance folks, with our legal team, and really understanding what we could and could not say. And the first couple of days, I got a little bogged down. I was like, wow, I don't think any of the ideas that I had coming into this are going to be able to play out. But what I quickly learned is we have such a great group of people here. The answer is not always no. The answer is, I don't think so, but let me see if we can find a way to do it. And so I think the
Yeah.
team here at Native Roots is really good about thinking outside of the box and trying to find a way to make things happen. Um, and it doesn't always work out, and it doesn't always come to fruition the way you want to. But I feel like we end up with more yeses and maybes than nos.
Yeah. I could see that. I can definitely understand. I mean, at least from you, from a personal perspective, like coming from that, I can only imagine what that transition was like.
Yeah, I mean,
But I definitely see
yeah, in the old
so many
world,
struggles with this.
you want to boost online sales, you drop some money here, you drop some money there, and you drop some money in this bucket, and your online sales reflect that in 24 hours, and life is good. Here, those
Yeah.
buckets don't exist, so you have to kind of think outside of the box of where you're going to drop those dollars to make an impact on the business.
Yeah. So if you were to start, let's say you were to start a completely brand new cannabis business, you're starting to sell new product. How do you how would you get that going from a marketing perspective? Because you can't really do much with the advertising side. So is it just start to build up the social presence and do what you can from that side, and then maybe a content creation side? Like what would be the approach if you weren't like funded
Mhm.
by obviously the large company that
Yeah,
you're working
sure,
with?
absolutely. I think where you have to get your mindset on is you have to kind of take it back to late 90s, early 2000s, before the internet was a big uh, contributor to online shopping. And you have to kind of think, how would you launch a product before the internet was available? And you go about it in the same way. You'd schedule a launch event, getting people to talk about it, grassroots efforts. And then once you have that base plan, then you can start adding in your digital elements. Well, I can say this on social. So how can we create a social campaign that reflects what I want to say and what I want to do at the launch event or at this community sponsored event, et cetera. And it's not relying solely on the internet and your online platforms as your base. It's relying on that old school kind of marketing know-how from the 90s, if you will, and then bringing in the internet and the digital platforms to supplement.
Yeah. Interesting. And do you think that is there still a lot of room to grow and to be able to market successfully in an offline perspective, whether it's traditional like direct mail, or have you like done anything with like billboards or anything along those lines?
We've done some billboards with mixed success. Just depends on where they are. The city of Denver does not allow cannabis billboards, but the state of Colorado does. So we have experimented with that. We have not experimented with direct mails because the United States Postal Service actually has a penalty of prison time for sending cannabis mailers. The joke in the office is, who goes to jail though? Is it the CEO? Is it me? Do we get to choose? So, we haven't dipped our toe into that. I know that there are a lot of smaller dispensaries that have done the direct mail campaign, and kudos to them. We are at the size now here in Colorado that we're kind of taking a step back from even pursuing that, because we do feel like if we were to get caught, we would probably be made an example of because of our size here in Colorado. So we're steering clear of the direct mail. I hope I answered that question.
Yeah, I didn't know that you would go to jail for it. So that totally makes sense.
That was
this industry is insane.
We didn't either for a little while. We thought that there was just a fine, which we were going to be willing to cover. And then one of our attorneys went digging a little deeper and was like, whoa, hold up. There can be a prison sentence if we're caught doing direct mail. So,
jeez.
Yeah.
That's all right. Well, for those of you that are listening, fun fact, don't do that if you're in the cannabis brand. Wow. All right, Buck, obviously really appreciated having you on the show. I don't want to take up too much of your time. I know you guys are super busy over there, but I would love to give you the opportunity, let everyone know where they can find out more about you and, of course, more about Native.
Yeah, absolutely. If you want to find out more about me, I don't know that I am all that interesting, but if you want to, you can find me on LinkedIn. The name is Buck Dutton. And if you want to learn more about Native Roots, which I would encourage you to do, our website is nativerootscannabis.com. It's nativerootscannabis.com. And we will be having our new website live, hopefully by July 1.
Beautiful. Sounds good. I'm going to check it out. I'm super excited to see how that thing works, because I don't know how anyone does cannabis at all. It seems very challenging.
It is,
which obviously,
but I love it. I wake up every day and excited to be in this office.
I bet, because it's new every day. Stuff changes so fast. It's amazing. Buck, thank you so much for being on the show. Obviously, everyone who tuned in, thank you so much as well. Please do the usual: rate, review, subscribe, all that fun stuff, or head over to ecommshow.com to check out all of our previous episodes, or register to join our live episode on April 30th for our 100th episode. But if not, we'll see you all next time, and appreciate you joining us. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to the E-Comm Show. Head over to ecommshow.com to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform or on the BlueTuskr YouTube channel. The E-Comm Show is brought to you by BlueTuskr, a full-service digital marketing company specifically for e-commerce sellers looking to accelerate their growth. Go to BlueTuskr.com now for more information. Make sure to tune in next week for another amazing episode of the E-Comm Show.